of ASBM University, Vice Chancellor and Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University. Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. Jeffrey Alderman, President ACBSP, Dr. Steve Pankale, Chief Accreditation Officer ACBSP, Dr. Rajesh Khajuria, Commissioner ACBSP USA, Guest Keynote Speaker Professor Vipin Gupta, Professor and Co-Director, Global Management Center, California State University, San Bernardino, USA, Professor M.P. Jaiswal, Director, IIM Sambalpur, Office Bearers of Region 10, delegates, members from the print and the electronic media, invited guests, members of faculty and staff, and my student colleagues. This is Faiza Firoz, a student of BCom second year at ASBM University. Very good morning and a warm welcome to everyone to attend the inaugural ceremony of the ACBSP Region 10 Conference on Resilience in Education, the Intersection of Challenge and Opportunity. I now request Professor Kalyan Eswar, Vice Chancellor, ASBM University, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Faiza. Mr. Chairman, sir, Honorable Chief Guest, esteemed keynote speaker, guests of honor, delegates, dignitaries, and other participants. I welcome you all to this Region 10 conference of ACBSP. I welcome you to ASBM University in Bhubaneswar, the temple city of Bhubaneswar in India. Much as we would have preferred to have you here physically, all of you here physically in our campus, we all know the situation. And as the great American writer and Nobel laureate Ernest Hemingway said in his Life of Purpose, The Old Man and the Sea, now is no time to think of what you do not have. Think of what you can do, what there is. So we have to be satisfied with this digital interaction and digital meeting. We all know that Accreditation Council for Business Schools and Programs is a leading specialized global accreditation association that supports and celebrates teaching excellence across the globe with more than 1,200 member institutions and 13,000 individual faculty members. ASBM University is privileged to host this conference, and I express my sincere gratitude to ACBSP, to President Mr. Alderman, to Chairman Professor Patnaik, Chairman of Region 10, and the leadership of Region 10 for honoring us by accepting our invitation. This session, this inaugural session with the theme, Resilience in Education, the Intersection of Challenge and Opportunity, is being chaired by Professor Biswajit Patnaik. He is the chairman of Region 10 of ACBSP. He is the founder and president of ASBM University. And earlier, Professor Patnaik was a professor in Indian Institute of Management, IIM Indore and IIM Lucknow, the two citadels of business learning in India. He was director of Indian Institute of Bank Management and Institute of Reserve Bank of India, the central bank of the country. He was Group HR Head SR Group. Professor Patnaik has to his credit 103 research publications and 23 books. And he has been honored with ACBSP International Teaching Excellence Award for 2016. I will welcome you, sir, to this inaugural session. Our chief guest today is Mr. Jeffrey Alderman, President and Chief Executive Officer of ACBSP. Earlier, Mr. Alderman was Vice President of Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. Prior to that, he had worked as Executive Director of Kansas Bar Association, Camden County Bar Association, and Detroit Bar Association. With Mr. Alderman at the helm of affairs, ACBSP has become very much vibrant, responsive, and active, and our gratitude goes to him. I welcome you, sir, to this session. Our keynote speaker, thank you. Our keynote speaker is an established academician, Dr. Vipin Gupta. He is a professor of management and co-director of the Center for Global Management in California State University, San Bernardino, CSUSB, in US of America. He is an alumnus of IIM Ahmedabad and Wharton. He has authored 25 plus books and 180 plus journal articles. Professor Gupta is now breaking new grounds by linking Indian philosophy with the Western system of management. I welcome you, sir. We have with us as our guest of honor, Dr. Mahadev Prasad Jaiswal. Currently, Professor Jaiswal is the director of IIM Sambalpur. Earlier, he was a professor and dean at MDI, Gurgaon, India. Professor Jaiswal is a postgraduate from MIT Sloan School of Management and PhD from Delhi University. He was a senior Fulbright fellow with Carnegie Mellon University, and he has to his credit more than 50 research papers and 7 books. We have with us Dr. Rajesh Khajuria, accreditation leader, and he is one of the earliest champions of ACBSP in India. He has worked as chair of Region 10, and presently he is the commissioner on board. He is a professor with FPT University Hanoi in Vietnam. He was the founding director of CKSB Institute of Management, Vadodara in India. And Professor Khajuria has also been honored with ACBSP International Teaching Excellence Award 2015. I welcome you, sir, to this inaugural session. I welcome all the dignitaries, I welcome all the delegates and the participants. And for your information, these proceedings are being streamed live in the university auditorium for our students and the faculty members. And I welcome them all. Thank you very much. Faiza, to you now.
Thank you, sir. I now request Professor Biswajit Patnaik, Chair, Region 10, ACBSP, and President of ASBM University, to introduce the theme of the symposium.
Thank you. Faiza, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you are audible.
Chief guest, Mr. Jeffrey Alderman, President ACBSP USA, Dr. Steve Pascal, Chief Accreditation Officer ACBSP, Professor Mahadev Jaiswal, Director IIM Sambalpur, Professor Bipin Gupta from California State University, Professor Kalyan Shankar Rai, Vice Chancellor of ASBM University, Professor Falgu Niranjana, the Pro Vice Chancellor of ASBM University, Dr. Smaraki Patnaik, the convener of this particular conference, all other dignitaries, office bearers of Region 10, Commissioner of Region 10, Professor Khajuria, one of the very founding office bearer of Region 10, Professor Nandagopal, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I welcome all of you to the annual conference of ACBSP Region 10. The theme of the conference has aptly been designed by the Home Office and adopted by us. I take this opportunity to introduce to you the theme of the conference: resilience in education, the intersection of challenge and opportunity. American Psychological Association, in its paper, that is APA's Resilience Initiatives, has stated that resilience is the human ability to adapt in the face of tragedy, trauma, adversity, hardship, and ongoing significant life stressors. Resilience is not a genetic trait. It is learned by training and experience while facing obstacles in the real life situation. Luther, in 2006, in her review of the last 50 years of resilience research, concludes, resilience rests fundamentally on relationships. The desire to belong is a basic human need, and positive connections with others lay at the very core of psychological development. Strong, supportive relationships are critical for achieving and sustaining resilient adaptation. This is clearly evident from this review that resilience can be learned and mastered. Cohen, Elias et al., and Seligman have rightly said that resilience education is consistent with a broad view of the purpose of education as preparing youth to become lifelong learners who are productive, caring, and responsible members of the community. Now, coming to the challenge and opportunity, I would like to focus here on two areas of concerns, namely building resilience among the students through education, and secondly, building resilient educational institutions. Resilience education uses learners' strengths as an entry point to achievement of required curriculum standards. Precisely, it hints at how we educate, which needs a pragmatic shift from present education approach to a developmental approach. Joel H. Brown, in his recent paper on scientific reform concerning resilience in education, has stated that resilience is a natural, malleable, available, and yet underdeveloped or unknown human resource for changing our view of and working with young people in learning environment. Now coming to building resilient, sustainable higher education institutions, the recent learning from COVID-19 has created both challenge and opportunity. In fact, most of institutions have taken it as a challenge and have bounced back by availing new opportunities through adaptation of technologies. Now the conference is open for deliberations during the day. Lastly, I convey our sincere gratitude and thanks to President Alderman for sparing his valuable time to grace this occasion and also giving the opportunity to ASBM University to host the Region 10 conference. I thank Dr. Steve Parscale and Home Office for their constant support, without which it would not have been possible. My sincere thanks to Dr. Khajuria, Professor Abul Azam, Professor Naheem from Bangladesh, Professor Tuan from Vietnam, Professor Sok from Cambodia, office bearers of Region 10 for their unstinted support. I also would like to thank Professor Jaiswal, a very good friend of mine who is leading now IIM Sambalpur, a very well-known management scientist, sparing his time and being with us in this inaugural program. In fact, I am extremely happy that Professor Bipin Gupta has accepted our invitation. We had an opportunity to work together on a book, Creating Performing Organization. A brilliant scholar from IIM Ahmedabad and also from Wharton School, Professor Gupta, I am sure that he will give his thought in this particular inaugural program. In fact, we thought to organize the Acbsp Region 10 conference along with International Management Conference of ASBM University, which we host every alternative year, and this year we are hosting 8th International Management Conference on 2nd and 3rd April. But because of the annual conference of Acbsp at Washington, DC, so we decided to host the Region 10 conference online to facilitate the entire process during the COVID-19 situation, and we segregated the IMCON, International Management Conference, hosted by ASBM University on 2nd and 3rd April. I am thankful to Mr. Jeff, supporting us from Acbsp, extending the thought leader sponsor for IMCON. In fact, you would be happy. There is a large number of research papers have been submitted for INCON on this same topic, that is resilience, the way forward, which will be done on a hybrid mode, and it will be inaugurated by Honorable Governor of Odisha. And for that, what we have done, we have selected a couple of papers which are the best, and we are coming out in a form of a book on resilience, the way forward. It will be published by Bloomsbury, and it will be released on the inaugural day of the IMCON. Now, at the end, again, I would like to thank Acbsp, the Home Office, my office bearers, and the President for extending all his support. I must tell you that Acbsp has helped us in understanding the outcome-based learning process, which has become a tool to imbibe resilience among the students. Thank you very much. Over to Faiza.
We extend our heartfelt gratitude to you, sir, for such rejuvenating words. I now request our chief guest, Mr. Jeffrey Alderman, President, ACBSP, to deliver his address.
Well, good morning, everyone. Can I share my screen? Can I be a presenter here? There we are.
Yes, sir, you are the presenter, sir.
Can everyone see that? All right. Well, I want to thank everyone again for the opportunity to be with you today on behalf of ACBSP and the Home Office, as well as our chairwoman, Professor Debbie Gaspard. We want to thank you for the opportunity to work with all of you. I want to recognize Vice Chancellor Ray, as well as Professor Patanayak and ASBM University for being the gracious host that you are today. At this time, I'd like to provide a home office update, share some of the wonderful things that we're doing in working with you. As Dr. Parscale and I like to say, make the world a better place. I'd like to begin again by thanking the Region 10 leadership, our chair, Dr. Pat Nayak, Trutran Nak is our chair-elect, Dr. Uttara, Dr. Matab, and then Dr. Azam are your officers, including your immediate past chair. I'd like to thank them for being so generous of their time and the wonderful things that they do for ACBSP. You know, in the last year, one of the things that our board of directors looked at was an evaluation of our mission and vision, and they made some modest changes to those statements, which I'd like to share with you today. ACBSP's global mission is to pursue a better tomorrow by advancing and recognizing excellence in business education through continuous improvement. Our vision is to see that every business program of quality is accredited in pursuing continuous improvement. You know, it's exciting to work with schools that are dedicated to serving their students and continuous improvement. As Dr. Parscale and I have reported previously, it bears repeating, less than 7% of business units throughout the world have specialized accreditation. So you are truly special in your commitment to your students, your faculty, and your stakeholders. Our membership report of ACBSP is as follows. We have nearly 1,100 member campuses, almost 700 member institutions. You can see the division between 4-year and 2-year institutions. We have over 13,000 individual members, and any faculty member, administrator, or leader within a member institution is eligible to create a profile and be recognized as an individual member. You can see that we have 841 institutions with accredited business programs, 125 candidates for accreditation, and 108 not seeking accreditation. That's over 90% of our members are either accredited or in candidacy. So that is the highest number of specialized accreditors throughout the world. 277 of our members are outside of the United States, 60 different countries, and 6 continents, all inhabited continents. And I always like to joke that if a business school is in Antarctica, we'll fly down the ACBSP jet and see if they'd like to join and work with us. Region 10 demographics, we have 47 member institutions, and all of those, of course, are baccalaureate graduate degree. 28 institutions are accredited business programs, 12 candidates for accreditation, 7 are not currently seeking accreditation. I'd like to welcome the new Region 10 members as noted on the screen, and I want to thank them for honoring us and joining and for their commitment, and we look forward to working with them for many years to come. You know, one of the important things that we like to ask all of you is to be an ambassador, not only for your school, but also for ACBSP by branding to promote your candidacy or accredited status, either as a member, candidate for accreditation, or accredited status. We kindly ask for you to put that on business cards, on your digital landing pages, on your website, and throughout your business unit and your bricks and mortar schools to showcase that to your students. I'd like to now recognize the leadership of ACBSP that are also working on your behalf. Your Board of Commissioners for the Associate Degree, Kara Beth Johnson, Northern Oklahoma College, and Dr. Trina Lynch-Jackson, Chair-elect, Ivy Tech Community College of Indiana, and we thank them for their service. Your Baccalaureate Graduate Degree Board of Commissioners, Dr. Christina Collins, Manchester University, Dr. Jeffrey Lineman, Northwest Nazarene University, and from Region 10, Dr. Rajesh Kajuria, FPT University. And we thank Dr. Kajuria for his dedication and service as a member of our Board of Commissioners. Our Accreditation Governance Board is led by Dr. Ray Eldridge, Chair, Lipscomb University, Dr. Amy Ross, Chair-elect, Walter State Community College, and then from Region 10, Dr. Nandagopal, Shri Saraswath College. I always mispronounce the name, so I apologize, Dr. Nandagopal and my friends. A round of applause for him and our Accreditation Governance Board. Our accreditation team needs no introduction, but Dr. Stephen Parscale is our Chief Accreditation Officer. Diana Hallerud, our Director of Training and Associate Director of Accreditation, and Carrie Hunsicker is our Accreditation Administrator. You know, I don't want to age our following accreditation team, but the 3 of them possess over 40 years of service to ACBSP, and they are anxious to work with all of you and to provide assistance to you in your accreditation pursuit. So please do not hesitate to call upon us and them for any questions that you may have with the accreditation process. Our ACBSP Board of Directors is led by Professor Debbie Gaspard, Metropolitan Community College, Omaha, Nebraska, and then President Paul Stum. President Stum is president of Cumberland University in Lebanon, Tennessee, and he'll become our chairman in Washington, D.C. at the upcoming ACBSP conference. Now I'd like to recognize our ACBSP Teaching Excellence Award recipient from the PSG Institute of Management, Dr. Vijaya. Congratulations for your Teaching Excellence Award. We salute you. Let's give her a round of applause for that wonderful recognition. I'd also like to recognize your Best of Regions in Region 10, Nguyen Doc Trong from National Economics University. The role of youth in preserving and promoting cultural heritage in Vietnam and sustainable tourism development. And a round of applause for him as well. And we thank you for being recognized. Our Teaching Excellence Award is an important award and something that we are very excited to do every year. The International Teaching Excellence Award nomination and application process is completely online. We do this every fall. You can access the Teaching Excellence page on acbsp.org, nominate a colleague, complete the application, or nominate yourself. Nominations will be open in September for this year, and the deadline to apply or nominate someone will be December 1st. I'd like to talk briefly about our chair initiatives for the following year. Each year comes with a new opportunity for a platform and initiatives depending on the preference of our chairman or chairwoman. This year, Chairwoman Gaspard is prioritizing diversity, equality, and inclusion as the first woman of color to chair ACBSP, and we congratulate her for that wonderful accomplishment. We'll be hosting a Women's Academic Leadership Summit in the form of a pre-conference workshop on Friday morning at ACBSP conference. Everyone should be receiving information about that over the next several months, and we invite you to participate in that virtually, but hopefully in person in Washington, D.C. The board of directors is working on a new strategic plan, evaluating what we can do for our members and the growth patterns that we have from now until 2030. We'll be presenting that to our members during our annual business meeting to be held on Saturday morning, June 18th in Washington, D.C. Over the course of the last 2 years during COVID, ACBSP has thrived, and it's important to know that we've not only grown our membership in terms of the number of new members, but our retention has grown from 97.2% to 99% of our members. So, of course, this is a voluntary progression for all of you, and to keep 99% of our members during COVID speaks a lot to the things that we're asking you to do within your respective institutions, things like strategic planning and stakeholder focus. Because of the success we've had in retaining members and growing our organization, we've grown our capital reserve fund significantly, so much so that we have now placed some of our money in an endowment fund, and we have an investment committee overseeing that reserve fund, and we will report about that during our annual business meeting as well. And then as we look forward, our expansion and preservation of existing initiatives, you know, it's exciting that we've been able to connect with all of you virtually. Not ideal, of course. One of the greatest things that I've been able to do is travel throughout India, Vietnam, Bangladesh, and throughout Region 10, and I hope to resume my travel schedule very soon. However, through our virtual offerings, which are all being offered free of charge due to the generosity of our friends at Peregrine Global Services, we've been able to offer a teaching excellence as well as I beg your pardon for a moment, I'm going to cough here. we've been able to offer a teaching excellence initiative as well as a webinar series that has brought in over 8,000 registrants, and we're very proud about that. All of those have been placed in a depository of a research library, so you can always visit acbsp.org, the landing page for that, and watch those on demand, and we're very excited about that. Our Transnational Journal of Business will be released in June. It will be our 7th edition. Our 6th edition is now available as a free downloadable PDF. You can visit acbsp.org/journal for more information. To publish a new paper, the deadline has already passed. It was December 15th. However, we will be opening up for our volume 8 beginning in September as well. And we ask that you consider submitting a paper of scholarly work for consideration for the TJB. And now I'd like to conclude my report with exciting news about ACBSP conference. We're going to be, I beg your pardon, we're going to be holding it in Washington, D.C. from June 17th to 20th. Of course, the theme for the conference, as we all have discussed, resilience and education, the intersection of challenge and opportunity. Registration is now open. If you need any assistance with visa applications, please let us know at the home office. We also invite you to participate in the Dr. Brenda Johnson poster session, where we invite ways that you share your marketing opportunities that have contributed to the development of your business programs by using our ACBSP processes and brand, by submitting a poster and participating in the poster session. And it's exactly as I'm explaining it. The poster session is posters that we ask that you put up either digitally or within your respective institutions. And there's information about that on our event page, and we cordially invite you to submit your poster abstract to Kelly Lorigan at the home office by April 30th. And of course, I'll be with you throughout the day, and you can send me a chat and ask me any questions about that. That concludes my report. I want to thank you all for the time and for the opportunity to share with you today. I beg your pardon. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
Many
Jeff.
thanks to you, sir, to enlighten us with such stimulating words. I now request Professor Vipin Gupta, Co-Director, Global Management Center, California State University, San Bernardino, USA, to deliver the keynote of the conference.
Yeah, just okay. Are you able to see my screen? Hello.
Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can see your screen.
Very good. So good morning, everybody. First of all, today is a major festival of India, Holi, which is a festival of color. So I wish everybody a very happy Holi. And so if we look at the great challenge in education, in higher education, that is access internationally and in South Asia as well. These are data from UNESCO. And as we can see, there has been a rapid growth in terms of the percentage of eligible eligible population, which is going to college. So in South Asia, now 26% of college-going age population is going to college versus 40% in the entire world. And if we see, since 1995, there has been a very rapid growth both internationally as well as in South Asia, but in particular in South Asia. We can also see that since 2015, the growth has started slowing down a bit. Right. So that's those are kind of the challenges broadly as to how do we sustain this access to higher education for a large group of people, because we know that education is correlated with advancement in wealth and well-being of people. Now, if you look at major barriers to access, there are several major barriers to access. The first is quality of primary and secondary education, and in each of the markets, especially in South Asia, but also internationally, even in the US, that remains a big challenge in terms of quality of high school education and school education, and how they are preparing the students for college. The cost of higher education, that's growing at a disproportionate rate. The effective cost of higher education, because the cost of higher education is not just the tuition fee and the boarding and lodging, but it's also the cost of not working while you are studying, or not taking care of the family members in many cases. Other barrier is information about higher education, because there are so many institutions and so many degrees. So which of them is appropriate? What's the quality of them? So how to pass through that, and that becomes a challenge for many students, especially ones whose parents have never had college education. The career path after higher education, that remains unclear for many kids, and if they don't know what they can do with a degree after higher education, then their confidence in applying and pursuing higher education becomes limited. And finally, quality of higher education. That's a very important factor. And there are many parameters that go into quality of higher education. First, if you look at the South Asia, the three models of higher education that coexist. The first is the old British model of higher education, where you study theory in class and practice in the lab. Theory has become increasingly complex, and labs have become increasingly costly. So the British model has failed. Then the new American model of higher education, which is experiential learning in classroom. The challenge there is that faculty are not well trained, and education is anchored in Western frameworks. Then the South Asian model of higher education, which is to supplement the Western model with local languages and values, local cases, and local research projects. It's still very textbook driven, and so it has its own limitations. Now, let's understand what's the Western model of education. So Western model of education is focused on local development. How a firm or a region can mobilize disproportionate share of resources for supernormal advantage in development. How to command a premium for the power one gains by acquiring disproportionate resources. How to use the disproportionate resources as a lever to become the center of gravity for the best talent in workforce and suppliers, and for the best paying customers. How to be the best talent by creating a network of promising talent and forming relational contracts with them so that you become their priority. How to negotiate disproportionate terms of trade from those outside the relational contracts who are investing in not so best talent, and they have subpar social, human, ecological, economic, national, psychological values, and therefore they should give you more value. So that's the Western model of local development, that West should develop more than any other country. And it should become the center of gravity for all capabilities, all resources. The West should be the hub. Now, the effects of the globalization of the local development model, because through globalization of American and Western education system, many other countries are also following similar models. So it has led to a globalization of local development, unique mobility of the Asians in social, economic, and political domains at the international level, inclusion of Asians in the upper echelons of Western organizations, whether it's multinational organizations or political organizations or cultural organizations. Diversity among Asians implies diversified engagement across sectors. Engagement of family and community members by the Asians is further widening the Asian base in the West. And responsible behaviors by the Asian using a global mindset. So Asians are emerging as the guiders, that is gurus, guiding everyone on how to globalize the Western local development model. Because West is very much focused on West should remain supreme. Now, the Asians are globalizing that model. So they are becoming the guiders, they're guiding everybody how we can globalize the Western model. So effects of the Asian global development model. First, it has led to a destruction of the ideology of Western supremacy rooted in Western belief system. The left-minded chosen people left to spread the message on how to become the chosen one. Okay, so that's the Western model, the missionary model. The reconstruction of the theory of superiority of Western cultural system. So there's a shift from a belief system, which is based on sort of the spirits and what you believe in, versus cultural system, which is goal-oriented. So culture is very goal-oriented. So that's about right-minded, making the right choices. So culture is about your priorities and choices. Okay, so it's a Western goal-oriented geography. So the instruction has become based on Western ideals, which is to collect credit for the Western workforce system, that the Western workforce system is good and proficient. And anybody who joins the Western workforce system from Asia also becomes very proficient. Distribute discredit for the Eastern networking system. That if West is not growing, it's because the Japanese were not playing by the fair terms, the Chinese are not playing by the fair terms, the people of India are not playing by the fair terms. So discredit is Eastern networking system, credit is Western workforce system. And what that does is that it tilts the global exchange system in favor of the West. Example of how instruction privileges the West in the exchange system. So risk assessment models. The capability bias. East is risky, West is safe. That leads to investment bias. Seek supernormal returns in the East as a cushion and insurance against the risk in the East. Negotiate hard by taking an avoid approach. Trading bias. Seek discounts on Eastern products and put supernormal transparency and audit requirements in the Eastern value chains. Exchange bias. Blockchain for supply chain transparency to ensure labor rights, but not on the customer side to ensure environmental safety. Because if you put in the customer side, then the burden is on the West. If you put on the supply side, the burden is on the East. So it always makes sense to do initiatives which put the burden on the East. Servicing bias. Offer subnormal returns to people of the East due to relationship risk and the need for the West to be resilient with the Eastern relationships. Growth bias. We do not account for the risk of local development models that lead to global disruptions such as COVID-19 risk and other problems that we see when West is developing supernormally and other countries are not developing proportionately. So that leads to terrorism and all those risks. So that's the export of those risks by the West. But that is not accounted in the financial models, that how West is globalizing the risk. So why has South Asian education system today become an agent of Western privilege? Why the West has become the principal, generating supernormal returns from the South Asian race for winning the Western agency contracts? What are the barriers to South Asia becoming independent and not dependent on Western principles, Western practices, and Western standards? So I have done significant research on this area over the last year. I published 11 books with 1.5 million words, all original. And the finding is that South Asians have lost understanding of the sense of the ancient wisdom, its contamination over centuries of politically motivated translations and interpretations. At best, South Asians are left to relish that South Asian literature alludes to several of the modern scientific findings, but does not receive the credit from the West. There is no effort in the Asia region in cleaning up the contamination, integrating the vast knowledge of India and other countries to construct a proficient knowing system to address the grand societal challenges of the world and advance science beyond what is known today. The opportunity, we know that Western science is subjective. The modern science says that reality is an illusion because reality is different for each subject. A subject trades the social mass of consciousness at the speed of light and services the personal mass of consciousness at the speed of light. The person is the institution, extending its mass of consciousness as a person to oneself and a social to everyone else. So if you're a person, you are exchanging it with yourself And as a social element, you are doing it to everybody else. Therefore, the institutional mass of consciousness that enlightens a person is zero. Each person has a varying mass of consciousness because no person is confident about its consciousness. Each person seeks to network the consciousness of other diverse people for gaining mass. Each person makes his energy zero, which is the optimum point for mobilizing greatest mass, and becomes a subject observing the reality of others. There is zero certainty that the trading effect is positive. Since mass is zero, one can become god of science by claiming E equal to mc square, and everybody then quotes that person. The resilience in education, how to discover the objective science. The South Asian model of science is objective. It is based on certainty, not uncertainty. If you look at astrology in South Asia, a proficient astrologer is one who is able to predict the events in one's life and the effects of interventions intended to modify those events with 100% accuracy. How objective science has been lost in South Asia. So West says there is one God. According to South Asian wisdom, how many gods are there? People say that there are hundreds of gods or many crores of gods. Answer is one. In Hindi, we call it Ishwar. Ishwar means one deity, para deity. West says God has created each person in his image. According to South Asian wisdom, what form of God creates each person in his image? In Hindi, we call it Maheshwara, which is primal deity, infinite deity. Since each person has created it as a double copy of God, including the twin person who is the life partner, what does each person become? So Indian ancient wisdom says that it's a deity, Deva, working as a Shudra, dividing God's value. What does each twin person becomes? In India, we say it's a Devi, supra deity, the manifesto of the deity by trading her identity of Vaishya, the trader. Asking the right questions to recover the lost science. Again, continuing, if each person is a copy of God, then each person has a potential of God. What if a person activates the potential of God within himself or herself? Who is that person? Ancient Indian wisdom says that it's Parameshwara, the Param deity, absolute deity Shiva, the goalkeeper. What if a person illuminates how to activate the potential of God within and make everyone free from God without? Who is that person? That person is called Uttameshwara, primordial deity, Mother Nature. Mother Nature says there is no God without you. God is within you. What if a person decides not to activate the potential of God within and remain a copy dependent on God without? Who is that person? In Indian literature, that person is known as Sura, the devil, the king of deities, Indra. What if a person decides that objective science is an illusion and all of the above is just an illusionary production of mind? Who is the person who conceived this illusion within to perceive everything as illusion? The answer in Indian and ancient South Asian wisdom is Jiva, Brahman, who believes he personifies the universe and is a knower deity, the super deity. So this is just a small kind of glimpse of the work that I have done. You can see kind of the names of the books. The first 11 have been published, including the most recent ones, which is Mathematics Beyond Einstein, which shows kind of, the challenges in Einstein's field equations and which other people have not been able to understand. And I quantify the exact value and illuminate the field equations of Einstein. I clarify everything that Darwin has done and biology beyond Darwin and physics beyond Newton. In a world where there is no gravity, because gravity means reproduction of reality of somebody else. So it's about copying. So Western theology is based on there's a God, everybody is a copy of God. And therefore Western science is also based on gravitational reality, which is a reproductive reality, God's reproductive reality. Now, if there's no reproduction, if there's no copying, there's no gravity, then the entire modern science fails. And what's the physics under that condition? That's what I show based on ancient South Asian work in my most recent book, What is Exchange Factor? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your deliberation. I would now like to request Professor Mahadev Jaiswal, the founding director of Indian Institute of Management, Sambalpur, Odisha, to address the gathering.
Thank you, Faiza. Good morning and good evening, friends. All those who are attending ACBsp conference. It's my privilege to be part of this gathering. I'm sure it would have been very nice to have met in person in Bhubaneswar, but maybe next time in Washington we'll meet very soon. Special thanks to Mr. Jeffrey Altman, the President ACBSP, for spending his valuable time with all of us as a chief guest. Professor Vipin Gupta, who just spoke from California State University as a keynote speaker. Special thanks to him as well. Professor Vishwajit Patnaik, President ASBM, as well as Chair of ACBSP Region 10. A good friend of mine and very, very dynamic academician, come administrator and institutional builder. In very short time, he has built this university, and which is now widely known across country, across world. And he is full of energy, and it is great to work with him on this very important area of ACBSP accreditations for many B schools in coming time. Professor Kalyan Shankar Ray, Vice Chancellor of ASBM, who has been one of the well-known leader in this university. Dr. Rajesh Kajuria, Commissioner ACBSP. My another good friend, Professor T. Raman, who is the Chairman of SEAT Trust. He does a lot of work on accreditations. Dr. Samriki Patnaik from ASBM. Many other distinguished friends, academicians present here. Some of my colleagues from IIM Sambalpur. I think it's a great beginning that we have come together and started discussing about resilience in educations, and we have seen the last 2 years really education has been the COVID has made the complete disruptions in the entire educations, and the worldwide the education systems undergone many changes. I'm sure in the coming times more disruptions and more changes will happen. One of the key disruptions which has happened is the entrance of digitalizations in educations across country, across world. And last 2 years, we have seen that digital only has saved these educations, otherwise would have been a big loss. Of course, there was a lot of difficulties, there were a lot of disparity in digital infrastructure, like some of the elite institutions like IIMs and IIT. In India, at least, they could have adopted the best technology, like we have learning management system, we have online proctoring systems, we have all kind of infrastructure, digital board, smart board, as well as Zoom, etc. However, many institutions, they still are struggling whether just Zoom or Microsoft Team is good enough. I think a lot of change are required, and which people will learn over the time. So that's kind of resilience we're talking about. Now, if you see, the world is also getting disrupted around the sustainability, because the 17 SDG is becoming the integral part of most of the educations to bring the society more inclusive and sustainable. And that is where I think is going to be another focus apart from digitalizations. And that again, we have learned in the various global summit, including Paris Accord and Glasgow Summit. And whole world is now shifting to green energy, and sustainability is becoming the core issue for most of the government. In terms of educations, of course, Professor Vipin Gupta has mentioned about Asian as well as American and British systems. Yes, for many, many years, India has been following McLaw's system, British systems. And that system has been there in India for many, many years since independence. And it has been more to serve the servant and master model. Like we have been creating more servant with these educations. It was a more rote learning. However, Government of India has very recently come out with new education policy called NEP 2020, which is quite revolutionary. I would say it combines American as well as Indian systems together. And I think that is going to give a new directions to the entire education systems in coming years. What are the key features of NEP 2020 in terms of resilience when you talk about? It is highly focused on interdisciplinary educations. It provides flexibility that you can go work as well as come back and get your academic credit bank. It focuses on experiential learning. It has strong focus on digital contents and digital creations. And it also has more research focus. So these are the key features of NEP 2020, which I'm sure once it is implemented properly, it is going to revolutionize and provide the new directions to the entire education system in the world. Now, when we talk about resilience in education due to digital disruptions. What do we mean by digital disruptions? I could see there, like we have been experimenting that due to digital disruptions, we'll have to make 3 major changes. What are the 3? And we call it 3M. That you have to bring the new method from teaching to learning. That is one shift, experiential learning, where when you have a digital systems can be used by every students to learn themselves what is already there in the literature. However, when they come to the class and faculty comes in the class, I think they should experiment. So the lab job has to come to the class. So that is called flipped classroom. I think that is one new method which started from Harvard. I'm sure this has to be adopted all over. Then the new mode. The first is new method. The second is new mode of educations. Now we are very clear that it has to be a blended mode. Some education will happen digital and some education will happen physical. So blended method or hybrid mode of education is going to be the future. What about the third M? That is new model of education. The model of education is shifting from blackboard to platform, digital platform. So everybody will have all the content kept in the platform and one platform for the whole world. So that is kind of education systems which is going to come. Now, in order to see that how this digital disruptions and new education policy of Government of India could be combined and implement to provide a leadership in new method of educations, we have proposed and I propose 3 stages of implementation. Stage 1 is called disruptions from teaching to learning. That is experiential learning using flipped classroom. That is the first stage where every institution should focus that let us not just go for teaching, let's go for experiential learning in the class using various digital as well as blended systems. The second stage of our adoption is that we know there are 3 important components of education. That is, one is the learning, the second is evaluations, exams, etc. And third is certifications. Our current systems, every institutions are integrated that they provide all 3 things together. Like the same institution provide learning, same institution provide evaluations, and same gives the degree. I think there's a need to disintegrate this component. Let learning happen anywhere, any mode. Some classes happens in California, some classes in IIM Sambalpur, some in Harvard. I think students should be free to adopt the learning from anywhere, some in MOOC. And evaluations should be not necessarily by one institution, it can be outsourced, not necessarily by the same professor who is teaching. So that evaluation can be completely out of this outsource. And when it comes to certification, I think in the different institutions combined can give a joint degree. So this is how I think the second step of education's disruption should happen. The stage 3 should be integrating our institutions of all these components with the global institutions. So that's called global integrations again. And that should lead to complete democratization of entire educations. So we'll have to provide the same quality of education to every students and every corner with the complete democratization of education. I think that is the stage 3. So if these are the kind of changes which we are able to bring into education systems, I think time has come when the organization like Acbsp and ASCSB and AMBA, Quest, all these accreditation institutions should also make some changes to see that what kind of innovations are coming out from different institutions and which become the standard across the globe. I'm sure this whole day deliberations on this particular theme on resilience of education organized by Acbsp and ASM will provide the new directions and insight to all the participants, and it will lead to major quality improvement in coming times. I thank Professor Patnaik as well as ACSB for having organized this and inviting me to be one of the speakers. My best wishes to all of you and looking forward to interact more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful words. I would now request Dr. Rajesh Khajuria, the founding director of SMJB's CKSVIM Business, CEO of Team Project and Consultants, and Commissioner of Accreditation Council of Business School and Programs, USA, to address the assemblage.
Thank you very much, and hello everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, please. You are very much audible.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Thank you so much, Professor Patnaik and Samraki. Well, in 5 minutes, I have for speech, I haven't prepared a presentation, but what I thought is what could be the two or three profound thoughts that I can share with you. And the number one starts with this small pin, which is an ACBSP logo. And as I always say, that ACBSP is a great equalizer, that the business schools who are as great as X, and at the other continuum, whoever they are in 60 countries, once they adopt the ACBSP accreditation system, and once they are accredited, they are all at the same level. We are a great equalizer. But then on resilience, some say it is a national subject of policy, some say it's a state subject for implementation, some say that it is the business organizations who sort of create a demand for graduates and they govern or they indirectly shape the education system, and many would agree that it is the education system or the professors and the teachers they themselves, they shape the education system. But when it comes to challenges like we had recently of COVID and Omicron and some more variants coming in, I had an opportunity to take a look at what has been happening so far in my life connected with education and business. And I came to two conclusions, very short conclusions. One of them is that in next 3 or 4 years, the World Bank survey of 146 countries says that 82 million jobs are going to be replaced, but 96 million new jobs will be created. Half of them are going to be in AI, information technology, or artificial intelligence and its application. And that's one point where there is an opportunity and challenge both. When I saw that what is the intersection, if you can imagine cross, the Jesus Christ represented in the form of a cross, and you see a bolt in the middle of the cross, which is hard, that's intersection. And at that intersection lies the pain and the pleasure of sacrifice. And this is the fundamental to education system and its great delivery to prepare the next generation. The other thing that I was visiting in a very prominent Institute of Information Technology and holding a 3-hour meeting on the skill gap in IT. There are 8 senior professors and heads were present in the meeting, and I had my colleague with me. By the way, I have taken up an additional assignment as Vice President Learning with an IT company called Recipient Software, where we export 100% software to United States, UK, and 20 more countries, and 700 people working. So my job is to find out new learning opportunities for the company on one side and for the education system on the other side. Now in that meeting, I asked a simple question. How many of professors in Information Technology's premier institute are certified with some or the other latest technology in IT? And can you believe me that none could say a single word? All of them said that we are PhDs in information technology, but none of them were certified in technology. And I mean, one can imagine that they also have the skill gap. So I am going to end in next 2 minutes by sharing one common piece of information that due to COVID, Microsoft had a 10-year plan to build what they call it a power platform, and they finished in 2 years of time because of COVID, because their employees were all working from home and they were more passionate about creating something which is in 2 years and not 10 years, which was the original strategic plan. And that platform is out now. It is called Power Platform, Microsoft Power Platform. So if you see Microsoft side, and there is learning also, that you will find different stack. It's a stack actually. It's not a single technology. And out of that stack, one of them is business intelligence or Power BI, which is more well known. But there are 3 more areas which are much less well known. Now the entire platform is for SMEs or SMBs, small and medium businesses. And the prediction is that in next 10 years, 500 million apps or specialized programs suited to organizations or institutions will be required, 500 million by 2030. So next 8 years. And to create those things, nobody has the coding capacity. There are not many students with coding capacity to do that. So with Microsoft Power Platform, one needs less coding and sometimes no coding. And then you can pick and choose and create your platform. So these are the exciting opportunities which are coming up for the resilience. We can talk more about it. I'm creating a lot of programs for technology in education, and we will talk more through collaborations, specialized collaborations and industry academia partnership. Thank you so much for these 5 minutes, and I am so grateful to Professor Patnaik for giving this opportunity, and Jeff and Steve for accepting and continuing me to be on their ACBSP Board of Commissioners. Thank you so much and have a good day. Bye-bye.
We are grateful to you, sir, for your precious presence and illuminating words. I would like to request everyone to please turn their camera on for a photograph. The inaugural ceremony has come to an end. I now request Dr. Smarty Patnaik to propose the vote of thanks.
Good morning from India. On behalf of the entire fraternity of ASBM University, I extend my heartfelt thanks to the chief guest of the event, Mr. Jeffrey Alderman, President, ACBSP. I would also like to express my gratitude to the guest keynote speaker, Professor Vipin Gupta, Professor and Co-Director, Global Management Center, California State University, San Bernardino, USA. My sincere thanks to Professor M.P. Jaiswal, Director, IIM Sambalpur, and Dr. Rajesh Khajuria, Commissioner, ACBSP USA, for their gracious presence. I'm very much thankful to our President, Professor Biswajit Patnaik, who is also the Chair of Region 10, and our Vice Chancellor, Professor Kalyan Shankar Rai, for being there for us always and every time. I also convey my sincere thanks to the Region 10 office bearers of ACBSP. I would like to acknowledge my gratitude to all the honorable delegates who delighted us with their presence. I also thank my colleagues, the non-teaching staff, and all the beloved students for being with us today. Thank you again and have a wonderful day ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Without going for a break, we are starting the next session immediately because that was scheduled at 10:15 a.m.
See. Okay, namaste. I hope that you can hear me and see my screen. I'll just get confirmation from someone on that.
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir. Good morning, sir.
Dhanyavad. Thank you, Dhanyavad. I want to say good morning to all of...
Steve, sorry for interruption. I think Professor Niranjana would like to introduce you, if you allow.
Okay. Okay, I will stop then.
Namaskar. Very good morning from India. President of ASBM University and Chair of Reason 10, Professor Biswajit Patnaik, Vice Chancellor of ASBM University, Professor Kalyan Sankar Rai, President of ACBSP, Mr. Jeff Alderman, Dr. Steve Pascal, and Ms. Alima, Commissioner of ACBSP, Dr. Rajesh Khajuria, Office Bearers of ACBSP Region 10, my colleagues, delegates, participants, and my dear students. I welcome you all to the second session of ACBSP Region 10 Annual Conference. We have with us Dr. Steve Pascal and Ms. Alima Jamia Suren for this session. Dr. Pascal is the Chief Accreditation Officer of ACBSP USA. He joined ACBSP in 2004. He is a PhD in Business Administration and Management from North Central University in Prescott, Arizona. He also has a Master of Science in Management degree and a Bachelor of Science in Human Resource Management degree from Friends University in Wichita, Kansas. Dr. Pascal has 2 associate degrees, an Associate of Applied Science degree from Butler Community College and an Associate of Applied Science degree from the Community College of Air Force. I welcome Dr. Steve to this session. We also have with us Ms. Alima Jamia Suren, who is the Director of Asia and Asia Pacific Operations of Peregrine Global Services. She has been an international consultant and economist for more than 20 years. She focuses on building strategic relationships with institutions of higher education, accrediting associations and organizations located in the US and around the world. Currently, Alima is based in Peregrine's Tokyo office and oversees the Asia and Asia Pacific operations, conducting planning and budgeting, management of regional partner relationships and business development of Peregrine. She joined Peregrine in its Alima joined Peregrine in its. I request.
Ma'am, you're on mute. Please unmute yourself.
Now am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, ma'am, please continue.
Okay. Alima joined Peregrine in its Washington DC office about 10 years ago. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from Brownmore College, Brownmore, USA, and a Master of Arts degree from Tufts University, Medford, USA, both in the field of economics, and an honorary degree of Doctor in Business Administration from Idar University in Mongolia. I welcome Alima to this session. I also welcome all the participants, delegates, my colleagues, and students to this session. Thank you very much.
Okay, would you like me to start now?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, Steve, you can start.
Okay, Dhanyavad, thank you. Again, namaste and good morning to all of my friends in India. And I want to say a great big thank you to all of you in Region 10. Your presence really strengthens Region 10. So thank you for being here. I've been asked to share with you the process of accreditation with ACBSP. And so for the next 30 minutes, I'll be talking strictly about the process of from start to finish of being accredited. But to start with, I want to talk about the framework that we use for accreditation. And we've modeled our framework after the Baldrige National Quality Program that hundreds of organizations have used to increase their efficiency and effectiveness tremendously. And there's books written on that, research studies written on that as well. So the ACBsp standards are modeled on the education criteria for performance excellence and from the Baldrige National Quality Program. And this is the leading edge of validated management practices because of the organizations that work through it and the improvements that are made in the standards and criteria every 2 years, and every other 2 years, the process is improved, and that leads to the management practices. And it's the forefront of proven management practice in high performing organizations. And again, research is available, very interesting on this improvement. So starting with the accreditation, we have 2 accreditation cycles a year. The first one starts on December 15th. That's when the self-study is due. And that's when they would lock it in the online portal. The site visit would be in February or March if you locked your self-study in December. And then the board would meet in April and review the reports and make a decision on the accreditation. If you lock your self-study on July 15th, then site visit would be in September or October, and the board meets in November to make the accreditation decisions. Now, let's talk about year 1 in this process. You join as a member of ACBSP with a payment of $2,500 US, and that is submitted with the member enrollment form and then processed as a new member of ACBSP. Qualifications for membership are institutional accreditation in the United States. Outside of the United States, it's the authority to grant higher education degrees, usually from the government or a government assigned authority. Once you're a member, you can apply for candidacy for accreditation, or you can do it simultaneously. But candidacy is when you really start the accreditation process with ACBSP. So the application is completed and submitted with a There's a fee of $2,500 for accreditation. You pay 1/2 of that when you start as a candidate, and you pay the second half of that when you lock your self-study for accreditation. So then you're designated as a candidate for accreditation on our website, and you can use the logo of the candidate for accreditation on your material. Once you enter candidacy, the accreditation dues for your second year would be $2,950. And when you're accredited, it will remain at $2,950. You're entered into the ACBSP online accreditation reporting portal. This is what the portal looks like. And there are 7 standards and 120 criteria that you respond to and provide evidence and to be evaluated for the accreditation process. Our online reporting portal is a project management tool. You can see that you can assign users, status, due dates with each one of these areas. So candidate for accreditation were assigned a mentor to help you through the process of answering the questions in the self-study and with process questions. So you complete the preliminary questionnaire, and let me show you what that looks like. This one doesn't have it in this regard. So with the preliminary questionnaire, you're only responding to about 30 of the criteria within the self-study in the reporting portal. Once you respond to the preliminary questionnaire, your mentor is going to review your responses and provide a gap analysis. What you need to do to successfully be accredited, either improve a process or change the process, start a process, or expand the definition or explanation of the process. About year 2, you write your self-study. That means you finish the rest of the criteria within the online reporting portal, and the programs are ready to proceed based on preliminary questionnaire gap improvements. So once you improve the gap that the mentor has identified for you, then your mentor will recommend to us in the headquarters office that you're ready to complete your self-study. Then I review the self-study and validate the recommendation, and then we inform you to complete your self-study through the online reporting portal and lock it when you have completed it, either by December or July 15th. The self-study is really a tool that helps you identify what you're doing, how you're doing it, and how you can do it better. And it's focused on continuous improvement in all of the 7 standards. Continuous improvement is required. Results are required in the 7 standards, and we're looking at output versus input on results. Working on the self-study, that online reporting portal provides structure for you. There's a discipline in completing the self-study, like there's a discipline in completing your dissertation. There's peer support within the self-study through the home office, through your mentors, and through many of your friends in other organizations that have already completed the accreditation process. And then there's recognition. When you're accredited, you are recognized and rewarded for that accreditation. And then I want to talk about practice what we teach. If you notice the standards like strategic planning, like stakeholder satisfaction, in our business degrees, we teach those tasks to students in order to be successful in the business world. So everything that you're responding to in your self-study, you're teaching your students. So we're saying practice what you teach. And that's what you'll do in your self-study when you write, strategic planning. You're teaching strategic planning. So then you're writing about your strategic plan within the self-study. Year 3, if it takes 3 years, sometimes it only takes 2 to complete the accreditation process. Sometimes it takes 3. So, but if we go into year 3, just for our example, there's a site visit that's scheduled when the self-study's been reviewed, and there's a high likelihood of a successful visit. That's why we have the mentor, and that's why I evaluate the self-study before, or the preliminary questionnaire before you finish the self-study, because we want to make sure that you can succeed in this process. There's typically 3 people that will visit your campus when it's safe. Right now, we're doing virtual site visits because of the pandemic. And typically a site visit takes 2.5 days with 3 people on your campus. And so that's a 3-day visit. The finding of the evaluators is reviewed by the staff. The evaluators write a feedback report in the online reporting portal. We review it, and then we open it up to you to make comments. So you get to see what the team wrote, and you get to respond to what the team wrote. So after we have the response from you, it's sent to the Board of Commissioners twice a year, two cycles. The Board of Commissioners review the self-study, the feedback report, and your comments. And they put a lot of weight on your comments after the self-study is peer-reviewed. Then they make the accreditation decision. The decision is appointed at the date of the board meeting. So if the board meets November 17th and accredits your programs, they're accredited on November 17th. You can promote the accreditation after all expenses are covered. You can use the ACBSP accredited logo. Some of the costs, and these are just estimates of costs or examples. The accreditation fee is $2,500. The mentor work is about $2,000. A site visit honoraria for the peer review teams about $2,000. The site visit travel expenses, meals, lodging, and travel is about $3,500. So $10,000 or so as an idea of what it would cost to go through this accreditation process. It's more expensive depending on where you're located and where we can get evaluators. We do have peer review evaluators in every country that we have accredited programs. Now, your accreditation is good for 10 years, and then you have to go through reaffirmation of accreditation where you write another self-study and have another site visit. Now, there's a possibility you could receive conditional accreditation, which is only for 4 years. Now, with conditional accreditation, you have to remove the conditions within 4 years or the accreditation's removed. If you do remove, or when you do remove the condition, let's say year 2, then you receive the remaining 8 years of the 10-year accreditation. So after you're accredited, you work with your assigned commissioner to implement actions that are required to meet the standards. So if you have notes or conditions after the board meeting, after you're accredited, your commissioner then becomes your mentor to help you improve your processes. After you're accredited, the membership dues for accredited schools is $2,950 a year. And the only cost for reaffirmation is a site visit, is the travel and hotel and meals. That's the only cost for reaffirmation. So you don't have to pay another $2,500 for accreditation like you do in the beginning. Most important things to remember about accreditation, it's a journey, not a race. Quality over speed is really important, that you evaluate what you're doing, how you're doing it, and how you can improve it over time and work on those improvement opportunities to improve your academic quality. That's the whole reason for this accreditation. This accreditation is a management tool, quality management tool, to help you improve what you're doing and how you're doing it. So the evaluators on the Board of Commissioners, they're not looking for gotchas or way to penalize you. We're really here to help you. We're looking for strengths and opportunities for improvement. based on Malcolm Baldrige, we talked about that, and continuous improvement continues after accreditation. You'll do reports every 2 years after accreditation. And just a real quick brief on the standards. Okay, so leadership is standard 1, strategic planning is standard 2, student and stakeholder focus is standard 3, measurement analysis of student learning and performance, standard 4, faculty focus, standard 5, curriculum, standard 6, and the final standard is key performance results. So that's just a real quick overview of the standard and the process. So Dhanyavad, thank you very much. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking deliberation. I now request Ms. Arima Javani Suresh, Director of Asia Pacific Corporation, to discuss the student learning outcomes. Please, ma'am.
Yes, I would like to share my screen and let me know if you see it. Can you hear me?
I hear you, yes.
Okay, you see the
Yes.
slide?
I see it.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the organizers of the ACBSP Region 10 conference. And we at Peregrine are always proud and delighted to work with ACBSP, a major partner, and also sponsor the Region 10 conference again this year. And I hope many of you are familiar with Peregrine and our assessment solutions. And Steve mentioned in the last presentation about different standards in order to meet ACBSP accreditation requirements. And standard 4 is where we usually work with our partner institutions to help them meet those standards, right? But then in listening to our previous presenters and also thinking about the topic of the conference that is coming up, right? Resilience in education and the intersection of challenges and opportunities. And this is the area where definitely, we can help you and put our heads together. And we all are very familiar with the expression, you can't manage what you don't measure, right? If you have good data, then you are able to make good decisions. So we do assessment, we conduct data, and as Steve mentioned, ACBSP accreditation is focused on results and on outputs. And then so you have your data, right? So you want to get to good results, to good decision making. And here I decided to kind of change my presentation and talk about then how do we help you to get from point E to that point B. So the topic of my presentation today is going to be student learning outcomes assessment, but analyzing your assessment data. So as you know, assessment is also a process, and well, let me get this out of the way. Okay, is a process, and it's not a task that is completed once and then moved on from, right? Here you will see a graphic that clearly demonstrates the assessment process and what it means to close the loop. So you start here with your mission, vision, and values. From there, you develop your learning goals and objectives that will help your institution fulfill their mission, right? And then after, you map your objectives and develop your rubrics and ensure courses and curriculum are aligned with your objectives. And then you assess your student learning and performance. Now, the part of the process we're going to spend our time today is collecting the results, analyzing the findings, and we will briefly touch upon presenting those findings to the others. So you may feel like you have checked a box here, right, with the assessment process, like we just saw in the previous graphic. Now, what happened before the assessment was a process. We saw it in the graphic. And you determined your program goals to be in line with your institutional goals, and you crafted your learning outcomes and developed the curriculum, your course, your program structure to support it. And then finally, you choose, or maybe you have created an assessment to measure whether you were successful in doing the things that you said you were going to do. And essentially, those are helping our students, our learners, to achieve the competencies, the learning outcomes that we have set out. Now, the assessment process does not stop here. In all actuality, what happens after assessment is just as important as everything that happened prior. Now, the value of an assessment is that it offers evidence that illuminates a department's program strengths and weaknesses. And we are talking about the challenges and opportunities, right? So assessment data represent a flashlight, not a hammer. So they shine a light on what is working well in the program and point out the strengths rather than being a blunt instrument to show where educators or students have failed. Through quantitative and qualitative methods, your academic program can expand on bright spots and then take corrective measures to mitigate any weaknesses that you might have identified through the assessment process. So there are many best practices that we can share with you, and please feel free to visit peregrineglobal.com. We have many resources, case studies, and best practices put into various reports available for you. But we use assessment to identify our goals and objectives as a framework to analyze the data, right? The purpose of assessment is to demonstrate that you are doing what you said you aim to do. Therefore, consider what your goals and objectives are and begin to formulate the questions you need answers to around them. So you will want to ensure that you have both direct and indirect measures that produce data. And direct measure, as you know, is an objective measurement of retained or integrated knowledge and skills. An assessment that requires students to demonstrate these skills and knowledge can be used as a direct assessment. Now, indirect measures provide a view of student learning related to sort of example, attitude, perceptions, feelings, and values. A common way to collect indirect measures is a student survey. And we have found that the trends we find from direct measurements will typically be explained by the results from indirect measurements. So finally, you want to include, of course, both quantitative and qualitative data as you analyze your assessment results. And the qualitative could be information gathered on the open response questions of a student survey or known events at your institution that could have impacted assessment results. Quantitative is going to be anything you can measure in numbers, such as percentage of faculty with terminal degrees, staff turnover, assessment results, performance levels, and etc. Having all of these pieces of information available to you is going to make developing good conclusions based on your analysis easier because you will have a well-balanced and full picture of the results. And as I started this presentation, you have good data, your decisions are going to be good as a result. Now, surprisingly, 80% of data analyst time is devoted to cleaning and organizing data. Maybe it's not so surprising. And only 20% is spent actually performing analysis. Now, this so-called 80-20 rule illustrates the importance of having clean, orderly information before you can attempt to interpret what it might mean for your organization. So thankfully, if you use Peregrine services, we do a lot of the work for you with the data that comes from any of our assessment solutions and offerings. Now, most importantly, remind yourself of the purpose of various analysis, right? The purpose is to find areas of improvement and act upon the data to improve the quality of education and better serve students each time. And this is in perfect alignment with ACBSP's mission and vision and perfect alignment with the Baldrige system as well as with continuous improvement concepts. So in order to analyze, you must ask question, right? So now that we have the data we need and we have it organized, so we want to ask those questions and we want to use the data to answer those questions. The questions you're going to ask are going to be dependent on your goals, objectives, the type of your institution and program, and many other factors. Now, however, today, we're going to cover some basic foundational questions and how you would answer them while analyzing data and reports. So we will be using the reports that Peregrine offers as part of our assessment solution. And very soon, we will be rolling out some significant updates to our report. So these are very exciting times. Please look out for communication from Peregrine. So if you currently use our reports, and some of these screenshots seem unfamiliar, this is a sneak peek at what is to come. You will notice that we have images consisting of both our current reports, and so those might be familiar to you if you're utilizing our assessment solutions, and what they will look like in the future. So what does the data say about student mastery of a subject matter? So for this question, we would use Peregrine's internal analysis report. And this is one of the 14 reports that come with the use of our assessment solution. It comes all as one package, and it says complementary to your service. And then the internal analysis breaks down the exam at what we call the topic level, which is the umbrella of various academic disciplines that you cover in your curriculum. And then those topical areas are separated out into subject levels. So here, let's look at an example, right? So business finance is one of the topics that are contained in our database. And this particular topic is further broken down into more specific subjects, as you can see here. So it is good to note that on our exams, students receive 10 questions for every topic, and the number of questions they receive in each of the subjects will vary. So a student may receive 3 questions related to tax rates, taxes, and tax code, but 0 questions related to interest and dividends. And that is okay, and I'll tell you why. So with this table, you can drill down on what specifically your students are excelling in or struggling, right? So what they excel in could be, just sustain it, right? And we will also see the number of questions offered in a particular topic and your students' number of questions they answered correctly, which is the frequency correct. So if a student was only offered 1 question related to asset valuation and inventory and got it wrong, that is not enough data to determine that is an area of needed improvement. However, if you look at the results cumulatively and see that students underperformed in that subject when 4,000 questions were offered, you can make a judgment. The report also provides a percentile rank so that you can see how your students collectively compare to other students within a given aggregate. So, for example, the results could be compared to all the management MBA program students that took the exam, or all students located in Asia. We have Indian average and Asian average, or internationally, or in the US, and so forth. By organizing your data this way, you can easily answer the question, what do the data say about student mastery of subject matter? So how does our students' performance to programs and schools like us compare? And as you know, in Standard 4, with ACBSP's standards and criteria, ACBSP asks for external benchmarking information, right? But also it is good to understand where your students score well and where they struggle. But it puts it into perspective when you compare those results against the results of other schools, right? Of other regions, averages, so forth. Now, to have access to that type of data, you will likely need to adopt an assessment service that allows you to benchmark, right? And this is really difficult to do with an assessment that is developed in-house, and it's not nationally or internationally normed because other students, other institutions and also learners are not using that particular assessment. Now, because Peregrine serves more than 500 institutions around the world and has administered, over 2 million exams, we have the data available for benchmarking. Now, our partner institutions are able to address this question using what we call the external comparison report. And this report allows our partner institutions to choose up to 5 external benchmarks. For example, you can compare against pools of school data based on geographical location, by institution type, be it private, public institution, or delivery modality. And I know Dr. Hajuri and Dr. Jaiswal talked about different modes of instruction in our previous presentation. Now, what is neat about our reporting feature is that there are several aggregate reports that will provide you with a real-time look at the size of the data, that is the number of exams and institutions within an aggregate pool that you are benchmarking against. So let's dig into ways that we can answer this question. Why, such as why do we have these results, right? You get your results, you identify the areas of strengths, the areas of opportunities or improvements, and that's all in the spirit of continuous improvement processes, right? But then you want to know why your students, for example, answering questions incorrectly. So when analyzing the data, it is much easier to answer the what questions, right, than the why questions. And as stated, using quantitative data can help you understand the why behind the questions, like, what areas do students excel in? What weaknesses exist in skills, competency, or knowledge areas? And that is why with our assessment, we have made it possible for you to include a student survey with your assessment and provide and deliver a student survey to your students and then run a summary of those results report. This is a value-added feature and a really easy way to garner a high student survey response rate and collect an indirect measure of learning, whereas our assessment tool itself is directly measuring students' retained knowledge, right? So our assessment also allows you to generate a report that is unique to Peregrine, and it's called the Response Distractor Report. And here, economist in me comes out, and I love going into detail and discussing, how you can use the data, how you can dissect it. But in a nutshell, this report provides information on why students answered a question incorrectly, right? And it determines if it is a fact-based error, concept-based error, conclusion-based error, or interpretation-based error with potentially, there's also another response distractor for calculation-based error. The report will draw your attention to the areas where students have a larger concentration of a certain type of error. So in this example, right, we see that there was a higher percentage incorrect within the financial statement analysis subject under the accounting topic that are attributed to calculation-based errors, meaning that the students selected the incorrect response based on an error with a formula or a math-related calculation. The next most common error for this subject was interpretation-based error, meaning the student selected the incorrect response based on an incorrect interpretation or misperception of the question, or it could be of the response as well. So we also analyze our data from the client or the partner institutions from exams taken during the 2015 and 2019 academic years. And more than 35 million incorrect selections were made. And when we found that in business programs at the master's degree level, learners tend to make disproportionately more interpretation-based errors, which suggests a knowledge gap, right? Conversely, master's level learners are making disproportionately fewer other errors, such as calculation-based errors, which suggests also knowledge strengths in those aspects. So here's the next question. Are there any differences between different groups of students? And I think it is important to do further internal analysis to understand the why behind your overall results. A really good way to understand why your data presents the way it does is to utilize a program or student cohort group comparisons. For example, in this particular example, you can compare groups of students based on major, their areas of concentration. You may find that you have a large number of marketing majors, and those majors do poorly in a specific topic on your summative exam. This information will help you look at the program requirements for that particular major and determine if and what changes need to be made to strengthen that area. Now, with our assessment, you can have an unlimited number of student cohorts, so if you wanted to compare by whether they took the exam off campus, on campus, whether they were in courses majority offered online or traditional blended, or adult learners or traditional learners, you name it, you can identify your students into those groups. And as I mentioned, you can also compare your students' results by delivery modality, right? And those actually represent some very interesting results. So I want to share a great example of the types of findings you can have when analyzing assessment data. So we also did an analysis of results from over 500,000 business administration exams, or management exams, right? And we found that delivery modality showed differences in retained knowledge at the end of the program. So according to the data analysis, students in online and blended programs outperformed those in traditional programs at the bachelor's level. A possible reason for this outcome is that students studying online or in a blended program, we're talking about the program, right, not just an individual course, are more likely to be a non-traditional age and begin the program with foundational business knowledge gained maybe through their prior experience of working in an industry. This idea is further backed because, according to the data from the U.S. News and World Report, they actually surveyed 227 online bachelor's degree program. The average learner age was 32 in their study of the 2015-2016 year. So another interesting finding was that although online and blended learners scored higher on the outbound exam, the growth in knowledge gain between inbound and outbound exams illustrate that traditional learners experience the most significant growth at 48.78% compared to learners in online and blended programs who experienced 24.44% and 25.72% growth as shown in this figure. Now, this reinforces the likelihood that learners in online and blended programs bring knowledge from prior experience. So what is your students' perception of the value of your programs, right? So it is quite vital for the institutions to demonstrate the value they provide to the students and the stakeholders. And so this is, an essential question. With this question, it is important to analyze both qualitative and quantitative measures. And this would include analyzing the student survey results that ask questions related to program value, as well as comparing students' knowledge growth over the course of the program. So if you assess your students at the beginning of the program and then again at the end of the program, you can use a pairwise report to easily measure knowledge development by individual students over time. So with the combined data, you can demonstrate the value of your program to stakeholders, including accreditors, alumni, prospective students, or employers of your students. So with the external analysis report that I showed you earlier, you can also compare student growth via percentage change against different aggregates if you do the inbound and outbound assessment, which is the testing at the beginning and the end of an academic program. All right, so using a scatter plot is a good way to answer this question. Are there any outliers that could be impacting my data? One of the common things that we recommend schools look at and filter the reports is by exam time. The internal analysis scatter plot shows that scores go up as time spent increases, right? And this is very helpful as sometimes students get a bout of senioritis when confronted with the end of a program. They're ready to graduate and move on to the next things. And they do not try as hard as they should. And with this report, you can easily filter out scores that are outliers. So for example, if a student took less than 20 minutes to complete a 120 question comprehensive assessment exam, it is a good indicator that the student probably did not try hard, and their data should not be included as part of overall results. Although it is good to make note of how many students do click through the exam to determine how you could get students to take the exam more seriously. So there's, indication that you really need to discuss the point and the purpose of assessment with your students. Now, on an inbound exam, we recommend an incentive such as points or a letter grade, but I meant on the outbound exam. So you want to look at ways to motivate, incentivize students, because as I started this discussion, your decisions are going to be as good as the data you have at your fingertips. If you don't have quality data, your decisions are not going to be quality. So that's the whole point. So I got a lot of interesting questions. I think I'm good on time, but you identify the areas of strengths and improvements, right? And then you have made those changes into your academic program, maybe textbook or the delivery of the content. So now you want to ask, what were the results of changes made to the program? And as Steve mentioned, ACBSP accreditation is about the results, is about the output you produce from your academic programs. So is there a correlation between program changes and assessment data trends? So although generally changes made to a program produce a positive result, that cannot be assumed, right? After you make a change, you will need to measure the impact. A great way to do that is to complete a longitudinal analysis, which will show you how your changes have impacted the results over time. So here's an example of such a report. And you can select up to 4 exam periods within a report, and you can define your exam periods. You can look at the data either quarterly, depending how you collect your data, annually, biannually, and so forth. What longitudinal analysis allows us to do is see clearly how we have impacted the quality of education, right? Over the years, Peregrine has worked with many institutions that were able to use their assessment data to make changes that had a positive impact. We're going to analyze just 2 case studies that illustrate this. And if you would like a copy of our white paper that shares many examples and provides our research findings after analyzing the results from more than 500,000 exams, let us know here in the chat and I'll be happy to send you. We also have reports of case studies of our partner institutions who have utilized our solutions, and they discuss how we were able to bring on about positive change into their program. Oh, so before I go into a couple examples, I wanted to share with you, as I mentioned, we are updating and adding new reports. And this is a brand new gap analysis report that's coming your way. And this report identifies potential learning gaps, right, of your learners. And the report combines elements from the longitudinal report, the internal analysis report that I showed you an example of, and also the response distractor report. So look out for it, and this will really help you to save time and to get to the point B in a much more efficient way. So let's look at a couple examples of the quality assurance in practice. So we work with the South University that uses a variety of our solutions, and currently, the student learning outcomes that are established for each program in the College of Business are assessed through several services offered by Peregrine, including academic leveling solutions, academic writing solutions, and assessment solutions in business administration, accounting and finance, and also healthcare administration. The College of Business uses Peregrine's assessment in support of ACBSP accreditation and business administration and healthcare management administration. And also, the assessment outcomes directly align with the learning outcomes defined by the programs in the College of Business. So the college uses both direct and indirect measures to assess the quality of the programs, and a Peregrine student satisfaction survey is integrated into all courses with the assessment. Now, course level retention and persistence are tracked through an internal reporting database. And Dr. Krishnamurthy, Assistant Dean of Online Programs, told us that during the 2019 assessment cycle, the Bachelor of Science in Healthcare Management program achieved less than the expected student performance levels in the areas of healthcare finance and healthcare ethics and law. And as a result, the program made changes to the course content, including adding some discussion questions, weekly projects, and other resources. And after the changes were implemented, the student performance level exceeded the expected outcome by mid-year 2020. All right, so I have an example of the University of Arizona Global Campus, their Forbes School of Business and Technology. I also have another example of the Indiana Wesleyan University, which actually saw a significant increase in retained knowledge at the end of a program after using our assessment to identify areas of growth. And then they used our academic leveling modules as a way to develop those areas. So to find that the students who completed, we found out that the students who completed our academic leveling modules scored significantly higher than those that did not. So that's a great story. And in order to show how assessment can be used to impact quality, right, we wanted to see if there was a trend with schools who used our assessment for at least 6 years consecutively. So Peregrine analyzed the data from 7 schools that were selected for this bachelor's level evaluation. And we were sure to encompass multiple groups of students and to increase the sample size. So if you look at the graphs, you see that there's a positive trend in scores over time. For the master's level, we selected 2 schools over a 6-year period, again showing a positive trend. So this suggests that schools are using the assessment results to make changes in their programs and improve the quality of higher education, which is a very good news story. All right. So with that, I would like to thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be delighted to set up a call or a meeting and answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
I request all the participants, if there are any questions, you can ask to ma'am. So well, in that case, we don't have any questions. Thank you, ma'am, for your provocating deliberation. With this, we have come to the end of the session, and now I request Dr. M.N. Samant Rai, Dean School of Business, ASBM University, to propose the vote of thanks. Please, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor and privilege to be called upon to propose vote of thanks on the occasion of ACBSP result in South Asia. I place my sincere thanks to Professor Dr. Bishwajit Patnaik, esteemed Chair Region 10 and Founder and President ASBM University, for his able guidance. We are deeply grateful to our distinguished guest, Dr. C. Pascal, Chief Accreditation Officer, ASBSP USA, for his enlightening address. I extend thanks to our guest, Ms. Halima Jamiesuran, Director Asia Pacific Operation, Peregrine, Tokyo, Japan, for thought-provoking, interesting address. I extend my thanks to our respected Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Kalyan Shankar Ray, for being a constant source of inspiration for all of us. I would also like to thank our respected Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor Falgu Niranjana, for her support and guidance. I'd like to thank ACBSP Home Office, of Region 10, Peregrine, for sponsoring ACBSP Region 10 conference. I would like to thank delegates, invited guests, members from print and electronic media, and members of faculty and staff. Finally, I thank the wonderful students who have attended the conference, not only from ASBM University, rather also from other institutions. Thank you so much for your cooperation. Once again, I thank you all for your cordial cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Well, now the session has come to an end and everyone in the meeting can leave the meeting. Thank you.
Professor Nandagopal Acharya. Good morning, everyone. We'll start with the next session immediately. Our next will take over. Thank you.
Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, Smaraki,
Yes,
you
you
are
are
audible.
audible.
Venerated President and esteemed Chair, Region 10 SCBSP, Vice Chancellor, Honorable Panel Members, Guests of Conference, Office Bearers of Region 10, Delegates, Members from the print and the electronic media, members of faculty and staff, coordinators of the convention, and my student colleagues. This is Shivangi Patnaik, a student of MBA first year at ASBM University. Good morning from India and a warm welcome to all of you to the second session, Focus Talk on Resilience in Education of the SCBSP Region 10 Conference on Resilience in Education, the intersection of challenge and opportunity. Mr. A. Totatri Raman will be chairing the session. He is the pioneer in introducing business school ranking in the country and also international accreditation that is transforming B-school education in powerful ways. Mr. Raman has more than 4 decades of experience in business journalism, that is from 1979 to now. And he has worked with the Financial Express, Business World, the Economic Times, the Business Standard, the Hindu, the Observer of Business and Politics, the Indian Management Journal of All India Management Association, HRD newsletter of the National HRD Network, NHRDN. An economist by education and practice, and is a passionate communicator. He has been impacted strongly on the Indian education scene through his interaction with the education leadership in Indian and global fora for the past 2 decades. Professor Abul Azam is a professor at North-South University in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Professor R. Nandagopal is the former director, PSG Institute of Management, Coimbatore, and Xavier Institute of Management. He is now the Dean, Accreditation SCMS Coaching. Dr. Tuan Tran N is the Vice Rector of FPT University, responsible for campus management and international collaboration. Former, he was the Director of FPT Academy International at CMC and the Head of Software Engineering Department of Vilna. He was the owner of his business in IT, which started in 1995. I now request Mr. A. Totatri Raman to initiate the proceeding.
Good morning to everyone. I hope my video is being seen now.
Yes, sir.
All right.
You're completely visible, sir, and audible as well.
All right. Okay. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate this reassurance to me. All right. So thanks a lot. I am very thankful to the ACBSP team and that of the ASBM team for this opportunity to be here. I see a lot of my friends here. In fact, all of them are my friends, I suppose. We have had very good interactions in the past. Okay, here we go. The topic of this session happens to be resilience in education, intersection of challenges and opportunity. I mean, that's the broad topic, I guess. Well, I want to really break it down to a few parts so that it will help us in this session. This session, I think, has got about 90 minutes. And my colleagues on this session, Dr. Nandagopal, Dr. Tron, I hope I have pronounced your name right. Then we have Abul Azam. These are the three people, but I think in the sequence, Abul Azam is the first speaker after me. So I'm just going to spend about 10 minutes or so in giving an overview of what possibly we should be discussing. In the past 2 sessions, there was excellent rendering of this particular theme, And I really found a lot of points which I would have possibly would love to talk has been covered quite an extent, which is very nice. And all I will do basically is to touch upon few of the points which probably my colleagues will pick up from what I'm discussing. And that would really help us in taking this discussion forward. I would very much love the audience to also participate in this probably after the speakers have finished speaking. And of course, you can interject by sending a mail, I mean, the messages, chat messages, which we will take it up in this particular session. That's how we will run this particular session, the third session in this conference. Yeah, to begin with, I want to really touch upon something what Dr. Vipin Gupta was mentioning in the morning about access. Now, access is a very big challenge, not just in the school education section, where definitely the access has been, to a large extent, at least legislated. In this country, we do have access to education in legislation, but in implementation, definitely there is an issue. When it comes to higher education, unfortunately, most of those who join the schools do not really reach up to that. And there are a lot of barriers which are natural in terms of the environment in which these students grow up and so on, that they will not be in a position to join higher education. There are also policy barriers which are still preventing students from getting in there. So when we really seriously talk about education in terms of the future as we are looking at it, because the resilience is nothing but staying there in spite of all the issues that you may have to confront. Your staying is the most important thing, and that's what resilience is all about. The challenges are very many, very many, and this is what we will possibly be discussing. Let me narrate a few of the challenges which from my personal perspective, I see. We in fact ran a conference in last year, that is our 14th International Accreditation Conference. We focused on, we have been focusing, in fact, this whole decade, we want to really seriously focus on digital transformation of education. It's not just use of technology alone, but it's an attitude that we should be imbibing in terms of using available technologies. So I will start with that as a challenge. The first ever challenge is to use technology more than using the technology, to understand the technology, because experiential learning today is mostly technology based. And especially in the last 2 years, I would personally think was a great opportunity for institutions to have invested in not just technology, which they did, of course, because when you're pushed to the wall, you come with solutions. That's what resilience is all about. And we did do a great job in terms of getting these classes run. There was not a break. In fact, in business education in India, most of the colleges have been running their classes without a break. And this was the experience in most of the colleges around the world. So I would personally think that technology adoption is the bigger challenge, not just acquisition of technology. And we already have good experience of doing this adoption. And all we have to really look at is that how can we build tools and creative way in which can we use this technology in the way our future challenges in education would be met. So that would be the primary challenge, I would say, for the education institutions are today facing, especially in the higher education technology, higher education system. Now, the reason why I'm saying this, I'm emphasizing on this, is for two very important reasons. One is that outside the education environment, the industry environment has completely changed. In fact, most of these industries have gone completely technical. In fact, there are some new industries which are coming up, very large industries based entirely on technology. So the outside world being what it is, and these are going to be the employers. And if we are not in a position to measure up to the employers, then we will have a serious problem of placing our students and maintaining their careers. So the issue is not just placing people, but it's also about ensuring that they have a long-term career. The long-term career in the foreseeable future, I can't see without people understanding the use of technology and also the innovations and creativity that surrounds it. And the inspiration has to definitely come from the institution and the faculty. So this is what I would say as technology infusion aspect is concerned. That's the biggest challenge here. Connected with this is another very important development that has taken place in education. Education is no longer in silos. It's not even in terms of, say, number of years. You can't say that, for example, you say 10 plus 2 plus 3 or 10 plus 3, 2 plus 4 or 10 plus 2 plus 2 and so on. We're not talking about that at all. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about education being a continuous learning opportunity. The concept of continuous learning has not yet come into the education industry as such. This is my personal experience after having interacted with a lot of my colleagues in education. I find that continuous learning is not being emphasized, but the fact is that considering the way the technology is evolving, if you do not learn in a continuous format and endorsed, it's not just about self-learning. Most of us do it. We do a lot of self-learning. But the point is, if you are in a career in an institution or an industry, you would be expected to showcase your learning. So in other words, what really I would foresee as a possibility is that institutions should really move away from the idea of a 2-year MBA or a 1-year MBA or a 3-year bachelor's degrees and so on, undergraduate degree and so on. So we should be really looking at, say, for example, somebody is coming to join you this year in, say, undergraduate program. You not only ensure that the person reaches up to the postgraduate, that is graduate program completed, but you should also be able to promise this person not as just an alumni, but as an opportunity to continuously study in your institution for the next 10 years and get certified every year. So the continuous learning is not simply a self-learning opportunity or certification opportunity. It's a very serious opportunity for most of the education institutions of today. Because connected with that is another very interesting aspect, is there is a huge amount of attrition, not due to the fact that the environment is changing or anything of the sort. It's just that students are finding it very difficult to gain access because the cost of education is continuously going up. This is a very serious issue. And the access to funds is definitely a very huge problem. Whether it is online learning or offline learning in the institution, the costs are definitely prohibitive at this point of time. This is not going to change. Considering the kind of costs and inflation and various things that is happening around the world, you are not going to see a situation where I will shift to online, therefore the cost will come down. No, not necessarily. So this is one aspect which you have to really keep in mind. The cost of education is a factor that you will definitely play a great role when it comes to resilience of the institution in continuing in the business and also for the students. It's going to be a very serious issue. So when you're considering cost of education, it also has to be tied up to the kind of earnings that the students would ultimately have. In other words, without quality of education, there is not going to be much of a great leeway for the institutions to progress. This is a very, very important aspect, something which we have been emphasizing for the last nearly 2 decades, and my own organization is about 15 years now. And all these 15 years, we have only been emphasizing on quality and saying that not just quality, but internationally benchmarked quality, because most of your industry are internationally benchmarked or with the collaboration of industrial partners, international partners. That being the case, you have to necessarily focus on quality. And quality can come only when you commit yourself for, or if you're resilient enough as an institution to commit yourself to the quality. And this is where international accreditation comes in. CR Trust Standards for Educational Advancement and Accreditation basically has intended, and we continue to do this, to advance education by using standards. Standards are basically a quality parameters. Standards which very easily you can acquire by adopting accreditation. So this is the way we connect accreditation to quality improvement and to advancement of education. And advancement of education, which really means staying there. That means basically you are being resilient as an institution. Now comes the other aspect, which is the health and environment. It's a very, very serious issue. Now we are members of the United Nations Global Compact as CR Trust, and we do a lot of work in that area as well, in terms of creating awareness of what is happening to our environment. Now, health and environment is a very, very serious issue, and you have to blend this health issues into your curriculum. There is no choice on that. You have to necessarily work on the health of your students, and you cannot, for example, make a student study or rote learning or make them sit near the desk for more than, say, 4 hours, maybe. In my reckoning, it's not more than 4 hours that concentration will be there. And in fact, the focus will start going down as the student, the day progresses. So this is something which you have to really keep in mind. So you have to basically look at creative ways in which you can maintain the health of the students. And comes to environment. Environment is not something which is in your control, but it's very easy to say that I have no control of the education. On the environment in which I am living in. But there is something called business environment in which you operate. And that's the business environment you will be able to impact. In fact, most of the time, I have been always saying this for the last almost a quarter century that I've been working in the area of education quality, first as a ranking of the institutions, and then now as accreditation awareness, advocate. I would say that business environment, understanding of business environment is an extremely important aspect of education. Now, mostly education institutions seem to be disconnected with that of the environment around them. So the environment in which you operate, you should really know what it is all about. And only then you will really be able to get quality. In other words, you are professors, your lecturers should be able to not just publish papers in these exalted journals, but you should be able to be part of the local industry, local businesses of commerce, the chambers of commerce and so on. So there has to be a proactive involvement of the academic crowd into that of the local business environment in which you are operating in. And in a wider sense of the term, environment also means a hell of a lot of things. And Global Compact Network, for example, talks in terms of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And these Sustainable Development Goals are extremely important. And there has to be some 1 or 2 or 3 credits that should be there in any of the higher education institutions to understand the Sustainable Development Goals. We don't have too much time. We have to 2030, and 2030 is not very far from now. It's just about 8 years or so. And unless and until the the education institutions incorporate these goals in a formal sort of way in the academics, we are going to find it extremely difficult to look at our environment in a serious sense of the term and impact on it, because the students that you are producing are their future leaders. And these leaders should be sensitized in terms of what are the challenges that are there in the kind of, the Sustainable Development Goals that has been enlisted over there. And the most important thing, the very first thing that they talk about is poverty. And poverty cannot coexist with prosperity all around. And that's what all of us are intending to have. We also want to be prosperous, but we cannot allow the poverty to coexist with us. So there are a lot of things which the Sustainable Development Goals list is talking about. And I will not go into all of this. And these, I believe, are the real challenges which are impacting on the resilience of institutions. So this is briefly my take on this particular topic. And I would definitely request my colleagues who will be speaking after me to dwell upon some of the issues. And of course, they would have come with some preparation of whatever that they would want to say. But beyond that, I would also love their opinion as to some of the aspects that I have raised at this point of time. I would now request Dr. Abul Azam from the Professor of North South University to please address after me, if you're ready, sir. Dr. Abul?
Thank you, Professor Rahman.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You have touched upon a lot of issues. What my background is economics, so I can say macro issues, more broader issues, which are absolutely important and relevant. Like you started with access, that was one of my points. But anyway, but I'll be very brief. But I will focus more on not the national level. I'll focus on the experience as we faced COVID-19. At that time, I was a dean in the UIU. Then I moved to here. And the challenges we faced, and they, in some form or fashion, actually relate to your conversations also, whatever you have said in your presentation. So since the outbreak of COVID-19, with its disastrous effects on education sector, actually all sectors, the issue of resilience has come to the forefront. And like, as you said, you have been working on education for the past 10 years, but only a few works like that. Most people don't think about it as now we are facing and thinking. Though, as I would like to say, it has always been an issue with educationists, economists, and politicians, as we know very well. And now, what is resilience? Basically, as you said, and I would like to say the same thing, it is the capacity to cope with adversity. And you said being there, I said continue the course of action that was being pursued. So we basically are saying the same thing when the challenge occurred. In other words, it is the process of adapting to a situation, face adversity, and it can be, this concept of resilience can be applied to individuals, groups, institutions, nations, the whole thing. And in this respect, I would like to refer to a famous writer from West Bengal. His name was Sharat Chandra, who said, in response to a question, that over the course of time, I'm translating, the huge mammoths have died. Or somebody was talking about our traditions and all that, said that course of time, mammoths have, etc. have died, but the cockroaches have survived. It doesn't mean the cockroaches are superior. What he was saying, that lack of adaptability is a critical thing. Lack of adaptability gives us resilience, and which takes us to survive. Now, I will focus in the context of higher education, particularly more in narrow sense. Now, I will categorize three things here in the process. That is the service receivers, the students, providers, the faculty, delivery, and there's a third component, the institutional process. So institution is itself. And resilience of all three elements is very important for the success of the whole group together. In totality, will depend on three constituents: students, faculty, and staff, and institutional setup. Now, to do that, as it hit us, and hit us by surprise, because this kind of thing hasn't happened in a while. We had calamities like the swine flu and etc., but this nothing like this. You cannot meet people. So none of us were ready for it. And none of the sectors were also ready for it. And it exposed the fragility of our system in facing calamitous events. So we made a paradigm shift. What did we do? But it's still, now I'll tell you that we're far away from doing it completely. First, we started, as you said, technology. We are in the beginning of it now, very beginning, technology. And it was a challenge. It was a learning experience for all of us, moving from classroom to that. But as I said, it is not perfect at all. To go ahead with a resilient system, we need to develop systems of ensuring whatever we have, more than that, higher quality of assessment of student performance, and also delivery. It will involve technology and the type of questions we ask and how we evaluate and those kinds of things. I was appalled when we are going through these things. Students, they're very creative. I mean, okay, outline, they were cheating among themselves, getting things. Okay, they are writing. Once I told them, okay, you have to answer the questions in sequence. Okay, they would leave the pages because they would the first question and then call someone somewhere and they exchange things. So there are ways of controlling it. In US, I taught in USA for a very long time, actually all my life. I came to Bangladesh after I retired. And now there are systems where you can control these things and all that. But for certain reasons, we couldn't do it, implement it, because our network is not stable. As such, we had to give them more time, more this, more so the timed tests. We couldn't do it because of this instability in networks. So that is a challenge, providing strong network everywhere, and that goes beyond the institution's realm. It's at the national level. Then the faculty had to be also has to be trained. They have been trained, but much more remains to be trained in this new system. This delivery issue is intertwined with what you call equity or access, as you have mentioned, which is extremely important. Students come from different backgrounds. Not all of them have equal access to technology, and delivery is impaired by students' ability to even acquire computers. Now, there are locational issues also. Some of the places there is coverage, others not. So even if there is access, signal may not be even strong. That is such a big problem. So in some cases, universities came forward to help students to acquire the gadgets and receive online, but network coverage has to be taken up. Even when in one of the webinars, Acbsp, there was a person from America. He said that in the rural areas, it becomes very difficult to get strong signals because somebody is on this, another person on the same Wi-Fi watching this, and that's it. But you cannot stop everyone else because they're all cooped up in the house. So that was a big thing, and it is here in Bangladesh also. Most of my experience, this I'm talking about from Bangladesh for the last 5 years that I've been here. Now, comes to the area of learning. Now, online learning is entirely different from in-class learning, and people, as you said, people have to learn it, have to adapt to it, because in future, even if we have in-class learning, I do believe there will be some programs online. Our UGC has already mandated that certain percentage of classes has to be online so that we do not forget what we have learned so far. So, but for many subjects, it becomes challenging, like math and all that. And there are other subjects like lab. How do you do the lab things in a situation like this through technology? We have to online, certain things, online teaching, you can do the theoretical physics and all that. But when it comes to certain things, you have to practice in class or in the lab. So we have to solve those problems. So after the post-COVID, perhaps certain online deliveries with physical access to faculty may help, but still it may not help for those who are taking it from far away. Now, all this time we have been talking about this things, but we didn't talk about curriculum. Curriculum, if you, I was reading the other day, New Zealand, this resilience training or things like that, I've forgotten the name of the course. It's part of it. It's part of their curriculum. Now, when I was talking about resilience and all that, and thinking about my students, some of them never came back, dropped out and all that, that showed lack of resilience. Now, there are certain things, psychologists, I think, mostly study these things, come up with, but which we can also help through our curriculum. Like there are certain critical abilities which helps a person, individual, because these are two things, individual, institutional here. Now, or contextual, what technique they talk about. Like emotional, these are abilities which are good. Emotional, good meaning conducive to resilience. Emotional regulation, impulse controls, causal analysis, empathy, self-efficacy, opportunity seeking. These are the characteristics which makes a person more prone to resilience. Kinds of behavior that will undermine, like some jumping to conclusion. Like I had students who would come to say, I've always known I don't know math. I am not good at math. He's accepted it. It is because of the way he has been talked to previously. Personalizing issues. I'm not good. Making assumptions about others. Allowing emotions to dominate. Reasoning. Overgeneralizing. So, and we can magnify negative things, someone, and then positive features we minimize. Then we think anything is catastrophic. That means we cannot recover. Those are the mindset which will impair. Now, we can take a strategy through our, some of the universities in Bangladesh has done it, I'll talk about it, that we can teach in course of our courses and everything, that thing, like in economics, there is always an interpretation and many other subjects, that there could be a positive reinterpretation of things. As we talked about it, that it is a challenge, but opportunity too. Then humor, active coping, planning, self-control, personal organization, good relationship with faculty. So faculty has to be coming forward. Integration with peers, support of family, supportive institution. So a curriculum, now we always talk about critical thinking in our curriculum. So critical reasoning is a part of learning in general, and instead of rote learning will help. You have mentioned about rote learning, which is the disastrous thing. It will mess up any degree of resilience. Will help build resilience in students. Now, at some universities, like where I was the dean before, we had a program, freshmen used to go, we used to talk about life skills. And it was a quite long, but it had credit hours. And there we used to talk about all these things so that they do not fall through the crack, what I call lack of resilience, meaning falling through the crack. You are not staying there. So, and another university here, they send students to an outside facility. Before the beginning, they have to stay there for how many weeks, I forgot, to get to know each other. So they learn how to behave, self-control, and all kinds of things, humor, by socializing. And those things help students to get over or not to follow through their dream. Okay, now there is another thing. I focused on students. How about the faculty? Faculty is also under stress, tremendous stress, and staff. Their resilience is also a part of the whole package, and they have to be also trained, or opportunities for training. They have to be given time to come up and face the reality, and university has to do it. And then comes institution. It plays a lot of big role. I mean, if you are narrow, not flexible, not willing to experiment with alternative modes, which may involve expenses, which may involve pain on the part of both administrators, faculty, and staff, institutions will not be resilient. So, this is the thing. So go back to the management people who always say that, okay, you have to have a model to face anything, and that good old simple model that whenever, or it has to be a continuous process now on, because we are changing so continuously. It is not like when I was young, civil engineers were at the top. Then construction was going on. Now in America, civil engineers, they have a hard time getting jobs. In here, though there is some construction going on. Now, after it is all technology, IT and all that. And so universities had to go over change and change and change. So there is resilience built in. So we have to do what? As time passes, we have to assess which way we are going. This is the regular textbook model. Then on the basis of the assessment, we plan. But focus should be on resilience in our assessment. And then we implement them and come back, review what we did and where we failed. And again, it's a continuous process, as you said, continuous learning, continuous improvement in resilience. And it cannot be one time that, okay, COVID hit us, we did it, we're done. It's not like that. Now, who gains? In economics, we always say who gains and who loses. In this is absolutely a win-win situation. The nation gains, less low dropouts, more educated, and quality. Quality has to be part of it, as I mentioned, quality education. Our education has to be such that it is globally acceptable, because labor market is not. I mean, labor market meaning all skills. It is global now. So you cannot stay in your country and just compete for 2-3 positions. Nation gains, university gains, less dropout, less hassle with them. Individual gains, their dreams are fulfilled. But it all will happen if we take the challenge and hit it on the head. But again, I'll conclude, technology will play a lot of things, and people must not be wary of adopting. I know I'm a senior citizen. Many of the senior faculty, they don't like it, but I have always said, okay, if you don't like it, that's not a problem, but let the institution go forward. Otherwise, all other people here will be what I call academic fossils, because they'll not be able to perform in this current world. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. I cannot hear it.
So please unmute yourself.
I'm so sorry. Okay, I was being very disciplined. I unmuted myself and I got into trouble. Okay. I was basically saying that your speech was extremely good, and I'm really thankful to you for picking up on where I started saying about technology, and then you gave a very good example, which is what Professor Nandagopal and my other colleague from Vietnam would be able to really endorse that not just adopted the technology during the COVID, but people excelled in it, which is really very good. And also the one other very interesting cultural aspect you should understand is that people were sitting at home. Nobody expected that this guy will be available at home for such a long period of time. I mean, that's a cultural aspect for which I think we have not really taken into account for that aspect very clearly. And like you said, not only the students were like smart in gaming the system, but students also gave you the opportunity to learn because they are already there in that space. So that's where it is. So thanks a lot. Can I now request Dr. Nandagopal, who's a good friend of mine, for a long time, and we are in fact working together in the quality space with all the other friends. I would really love to hear what Dr. Nandagopal has to say, because he has been a pioneer in introducing quality benchmarks and ACBSP primarily in PSG, where he was the director earlier on, and quite a bit of a pioneer and a person who can really talk in terms of what are the nuances which are there in the future. You said at the last concluding, you said something to the effect saying that as a senior citizen, I will say this, and whether you take it or not, it's okay. Now, we had a discussion just last week. It was a very interesting discussion that he and I, and Nandagopal and I had. It's basically, he was asking me that this thing that YouTube, they put these small little things, how do we do that? So I said, that's called vlog. And a lot of people are doing this, and there's a huge industry. I'm told that 2.5 million people are there on it, earning money. That's a new employment opportunity for you. So that's where it is. Dr. Nandagopal, thank you.
Thank you, Raman, and I could see my good colleagues, friends are here, and Sivangi for a nice introduction. I think I heard both of
Dr. Nandagopal, I see you after a long time. I'm so happy to see you.
Thank you, sir. Nice meeting you. That's
nice
true.
meeting you. He has been my when I was going through accreditation, my first one-to-one meeting was with him in America.
And I think thank you, both my colleagues, and maybe because of pandemic, we were not able to connect physically, and maybe this year, maybe we will meet at the June Washington. Maybe if there's a possibility. And I think I could hear, I heard my friend Raman and Professor Adam speaking about the changes and also how resilience taking. See, I think Professor mentioned about resilience, how we react to the changes and also the capacity to come back. And that's how he was trying to explain the conceptually. And he also touched about 90s, and also he talked about the pandemic. So I thought that let me try to look at the two issues and two challenges we faced in management education and also in higher education space. In 90s, I think as Professor Azam said, in 90s there was a sudden growth of management education all over the world. I mean, especially developing countries like South Asian countries like India, Bangladesh, or Vietnam and other places. The sudden growth of management schools happened. I think that is where people like Raman and all of us were concerned about the quality. When the growth is happening, the quality. So how the institution survived in 90s, because till 90s we were very comfortable with admission, we were very comfortable with the placement, we were comfortable even with the faculty. When 90s, it's a phenomenal growth. Okay, it is not a what you call incremental growth, sudden growth, infinity growth happened. So there, it was a big challenges for management education, especially administrators like us, directors. We had challenges. So how do we react to that challenge and how we survived good institutions? One challenge was the technological changes. I think I put it, the challenge is in 4 aspects. One is what we call technological changes, and second one is attitude changes. The third one I feel infrastructure, and the fourth important thing is quality. When I talk about the technology, again in the 90s, that is where the entire website or web revolution came, IT revolution came. People started using more on technological front. I think I remember now from moving from Blackboard, we went to OHP to slides, projectors, and then we went to PowerPoints. So that is where suddenly we were changing the technology, what we teach. So the technological change took in 90, the growth of institution, technological changes. And that is the time where the people, IT industry started coming. The culture of the people also started changing. I think maybe all 3 of us, my colleagues in the panel today, we would have spent at least 3 or 4 decades in the same institutions. In 90s, the attitude have changed. The people started looking at change. They don't want to change once in a 5 years, 6 years. People wanted to change to the new places. Maybe I'm not saying right or wrong. That is not an issue. But the problem is they wanted challenges. But we all joined in an organization, we grown in an organization, we continue to be in the organization. The 90s, the attitude of the people have changed, the attitude of the faculty changed, attitude of our students have changed. The students also wanted to try new kind of institution, new organization, new institutions they wanted to study. They didn't want a conventional kind of a study. So attitudinal changes happen. And infrastructure was very important. Conventionally, if you look at all our universities, even today, if you look at Mumbai University or Chennai University, Calcutta University, infrastructure-wise, they are not good. But private institutions, new type of institution, beautiful buildings, beautiful ambience, maybe lawns, tennis courts, or even golf courts, some of the places. So the infrastructure become a big issue, challenge for the institutions. Of course, the quality parameter, which Raman dealt very elaborately. So these are the 4 challenges we faced in the 90s. How we survived? I think good institution looked at all these things. In spite of that, one factor, the quality, made all of us to survive. So people, institutions, irrespective of the infrastructure, irrespective of the technology, good institutions continue to survive. I look at FMS, or I look at BIM, or more conventional university-based institution still survived in the market in spite of the aggressive marketing strategies of private institutions showing their infrastructure, IT, and other things. They survived. So that means the capacity to survive in the worst situation is the quality. I think ultimately the quality is the parameter which will make the institution to survive. The second one, which we have gone through, I think a professor elaborately explained, this pandemic. So a pandemic effect came, and always people believe that the educational sector is one sector which may not change fast. All other sectors, whether it's manufacturing, service, textile, banking, finance, when IT came, they all moved very fast. So always there is a belief that the education sector will take their own time to move. But in fact, we are the first to change. The next, within a pandemic, we all realize that the colleges, institutions, schools are going to be closed down. Leave alone the higher education. Let us look at the schools. The schools knew that they are going to close down for years, months. Then we thought it's going to be years. We geared up. All moved to, within a week, we moved to a new technology, new norm we have got into that, new working norms we got into that. I think as Todati Raman said, I didn't know what the technology today about YouTube, blogging and other things. But all of us moved to the technology. If you ask me 2.5, 3 years back, what is Zoom or Microsoft, this thing, I may not have known. But today, all of us comfortable, irrespective of our age group. I think all of us are senior citizens. We all 65, 70, we learned. I think that is a great learning for all of us. If the time pressure comes, we will all change. I think when you talk about technology, I think all adopted, not only higher education, not management schools. It is going to the rural most school in India. A village level, people have changed. Look at the governments. Government started coming with the new channels. I think every state government came with the new channels. They promoted the video learnings at primary level. I think there's a great learning which all of us has to understand. In fact, if you do a good research, how the education sector at different level, primary level, higher level, we reacted to the pandemic effect. And resilience happened really. So we survived. And then next question came, how are we going to conduct exam? Okay, online classes we have conducted. We had challenges, attitude problems. I think Professor Azam made it very clear that our stakeholders, students, parents, how they reacted to these things. I think that was again a challenge, attitudinal changes. Now people are not comfortable coming to physical classes, and the people are not comfortable writing a physical examinations. So everybody wants to be online, everybody wants to be comfortable in their life. They want to be in comfort zone. So I think the attitudinal changes also happen. Our faculty who never wanted to be in technology, they're all now technology masters. and again they used it. I think if we really look at the things which we never thought will happen in higher education and also in education sector was experiential learning. So we were talking for a quite long time. I think people like all of us in different conferences, seminar, we said that there should be an experiential learning, and we also strongly believe networking of institutions and networking of faculty members. Today, you look at the way things are happens. I can call a faculty from US, I can call Professor Azam to talk to my students. I had a cross-cultural management I taught in a course. I called 3 or 4 professors from different regions. I called somebody from Europe. I called somebody from US. I called somebody from Thailand to talk about the culture of management. So now, this is the first time I am able to get the people from the respective culture to talk about cross-cultural management. If I have not had an opportunity, if I have not used IT tools, I would have not done it. So that is exactly the networking happened. And we try to learn best practices from the people. I think this helped us to learn the best practices. Digital learning. I think a lot of us, we talked about online courses, digital learning. How far we progress, how far we proceeded. We didn't do much. 20 years we talked about digital learning, online learning, in India at least. What has happened? Nothing. But today, everything has become a digital learning. I think that is online courses, same thing with online courses. So we moved out of a conventional method of teaching to a new way of teaching by using the technology, networking, and experiences sharing. For example, this new technology. For example, I teach a course on business strategy. I gave 4 cases on McDonald, and I also gave a case on Amul, and I gave a case on VKC Chappers and TVS Motors. All the 4 cases, I asked my students to prepare, analyze the problem, and come up with a solution. And when they're making a solution presentation on the case, I got the CEOs of all these 4 companies. So they were able to get the insights of the company. Now, this is exactly the learning which happened because of the disruption we all raised to the occasion. I think we have a capacity to come out in the crisis. I think this pandemic has shown the entire world that the education sector can do much better, but only thing we require some kick. I think that kick we got it from the pandemic, and that is where the quality is the ultimate things. So I stop this now, and maybe I will take it up later after the next presentation and questions. Thank you very much, Professor Raman, for the opportunity. Thank you, Professor Patnaik and ACBSP for giving me the opportunity to share my views. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. It was an excellent presentation, and this is something that I really love because you are talking about attitudes. That's the most important thing. Whatever technology, whatever infrastructure, whatever millions that you may spend on all these things, if you don't have the attitude to adapt, because resilience / adaptability, that's what I would look at resilience as. So if you're not an adaptable person, it's not going to really work. I mean, seriously, it will not work. And you touched upon that key point very well. And the rest of it is, of course, are there like infrastructure, technology, and all these things are definitely a function of attitude. And the attitudes are changing, and one has to really recognize this attitude change. And yeah, that's the way the future is going to be. So thank you so much, Dr. Nandagopal. And let me call my next speaker in this panel. And just before that, I also want to mention one quick thing. We do have a lot of time. I mean, unlike most sessions, we'll say that, oh, come on, we are rushing. It's not like that. We still have some time. So I would request the panel initially. I mean, there is also this issue of people having questions that they will not ask so easily. So the best thing for us to go forward is that after Professor Tuan speaks, let's have a chat among ourselves. Raise a few questions. I will myself raise a few questions. We'll chat and then probably invite the audience to also participate. So this is something that we'll do at least for 10 minutes. We can do that. Okay, over to Professor Tuan. Thank you, sir. You have to unmute and you have to speak, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rahman. Thank you, Dr. Azam and Dr. Nagadopan, with your very beautiful and plenty information about this topic, about the resilience of education. And actually, you have the right points on the importance of technology and